Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, so some pretty big news today for, well, okay, Modern, but also for Commander, just in how all of this came about. Let's talk about Nadu Winged Wisdom, what happened with it, and why it is now banned in Modern, and what potential future implications that has for, well, Commander, and when it comes to cards being designed moving forward. Let's talk about it. So this feature article, I guess we didn't see the BNR announcement for all the other formats except for Commander, essentially. Yeah, there were some bannings that happened. And in Modern, Nadu Winged Wisdom, a card that just exploded Modern and is huge in Commander right now, was banned. Michael Majors wrote this article. As the lead designer of Modern Horizons 3, I wanted to weigh in on our decision today. Nadu Winged Wisdom was a design mistake. Now, just first starting off with that, I really appreciate that some of those at Wizards are willing to, also, talk about their mistakes that they've made and actually say that it was a mistake of things that they've done. I think famously, Gavin talked about Arcane Signet being a design mistake as well. This one, though, I mean, when it comes to Modern, yeah, it was a design mistake there, and we'll see kind of, again, what implications that might have in Commander 2. And I understand this is a Commander channel. I'm going to be coming from a Commander perspective. I do not play Modern. I played Modern back in the day a little bit, just a little bit. But there are some things that cross over to Commander here, so we're going to be talking about those. The community quickly identified in previous season that the combination of Shuko, yeah, that one was pretty obvious with the Commander community as well, or Outrider and Core, which I'll highlight it really quick. Yeah, that cannot be in a Nadu deck, luckily. With Nadu could allow the player to draw their entire library. As one would expect, many library lists were untuned, being either too fragile or using Nadu more as an afterthought than a primary game plan. And it was a strong deck. Okay, this when it comes to Modern, all right, it's being tuned for Modern. When it comes to Commander, I mean, there's more cards that you can combo with Nadu. Obviously, they're all one-ofs in Singleton. That being said, tutors do exist. So yeah, comboing with Nadu is quite easy and quite quick. That being said, let's just scooch down a little bit down here. So how do we get here? Nadu went through almost all of Modern Horizons 3's development looking something like this. So it's interesting to see that Nadu actually started off different. Nadu Winged Wisdom, exact same mana value. Bird Wizard, sure, 3/4 flying, same thing. The main difference, though, is, well, okay, I guess this whole thing first. You may cast permanent spells as though they had flash, so kind of like Vidalcan Ori, essentially, but just for permanent spells specifically. So I guess that really only, it's kind of interesting. It only impacts really what sorceries, essentially, when it comes to being permanent spells, since instants are already at instant speed. That being said, also, whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, via the top card of your library, it's a land card put on the battlefield, otherwise put in your hand. Interesting. So that's actually a really interesting design, and actually I wonder how much play it would see as a commander if this was the actual case. Less, definitely less in my opinion, but it's interesting that, again, throughout the development, it looked like this. It did change. So let's talk about, the actual reasoning for that change behind it. Nadu was a powerful option against interaction in various Bant mid-range strategies throughout our testing, but it wasn't something that our group perceived as much more than a role player. For some context, Modern Horizons testing works different than standard FFL. For both Modern Horizons 2 and Modern Horizons 3, we brought in a small group of contractors and worked on the set in a dedicated sprint as a collaboration between the group and a small number of play designers. The playtesting time is more dense as the group is singularly focused on the set without order responsibilities, but shorter in terms of weeks. After the playtesting, there were a series of last-minute checks of these sets by various groups. This is normal operating procedure for every release. It is a series of opportunities for folks from various departments and disciplines to weigh in on every component of the project and give final feedback. In one of these meetings, there was a great deal of concern raised by Nadu's flash granting ability for commander play. After removing the ability, it wasn't clear that the card would have an audience or a home, something that is important for every card we make. Ultimately, my intention was to create a build around aimed at commander play, which resulted in the final text. So that is really interesting that, again, essentially there is a, which is very, not strange, I wouldn't say, okay, but there is concern over the, okay, you can play permanent spells with flash. I mean, that's a powerful thing, right? But it's not something that we haven't seen before. Like, we've seen other things be able to grant flash outside of, Vidalcan Ori, and this one is specific to, permanents only, I guess, so again, that only really impacts sorceries. That being said, we have seen, other commanders out there like, yeah, okay, cast things at instant speed. They're more specific to like, all right, just artifacts or whatnot, or, non-creature spells, but again, pretty broad for the most part. Not as problematic as the card ended up being, really, obviously for Modern, but yes, for Commander as well, I would say, in my opinion. I miss the interaction with these zero-mana abilities that are so problematic. Yeah, that is something that is, again, understandable that a designer who, again, at the last minute, basically, you are given, you need to change this because, like, that's going to be a problem, so you need to change it to something else. And then really, really quickly changing something, your previous designs on your mind, obviously, and you're just thinking like, okay, I fixed that. No big deal at all. I'm giving you something unique, and Nadu is a unique design. That being said, right when, all the Commander players from my play group saw it, essentially, I'm not saying that everyone should have been able to see this, right? And I'm not sure if this designer actually even plays Commander, but, or how much they play Commander, that, it was a pretty not obvious interaction. But, if you just see a Commander player that, like, wants to work to break things, like, I like to think through, okay, how can this be broken? Not that I'm going to build around the broken way every time. Yeah, like a zero-mana activated ability that can be repeated quite easily. Like, something as popular as Lightning Greaves seems pretty apparent. Or, a card like Shuko. So, again, seeing that is a thing, again, is understandable. That, again, that late in the process, that quick, like, okay, we got to change this. All right, it's changed. It's understandable. That being said, it's interesting that, again, the line that we didn't play test. Oh, gosh. Here we go. I missed the interaction of zero-mana abilities so problematic. The last round of folks who were shown the card in the building missed it too. We didn't play test Nadu's final iteration. That is an interesting thing. Again, as you're too far along the process and it was shipped as is. So again, we didn't play test it is, to me, a bit more concerning when it comes to just things in general. Like, again, I understand, again, mistakes can be made. I 100% understand that. And the thing with other formats is, again, it kind of explodes a format, and then they ban something, which still does cause problems, obviously. Absolutely causes problems. I'm pretty sure the Nadu deck won, whatever, tournament there was. Regardless, I'm not really into it with Modern, my apologies. But things change, obviously. Things get banned. But in Commander, it's not really kind of how it goes. Like, usually when, like, something like this happens, where, again, we didn't playtest Nadu's final iteration, it's not like, oh, well, let's ban it then because, like, we totally made a mistake on that. It's like, oh, well, players will just rule zero it. Not a big deal. Don't worry about it. So it's kind of more so on the players to actually kind of deal with the problematic piece. And I'm not saying that Nadu is the most problematic thing in the world, right? We've got other things in Commander that aren't banned that are incredibly problematic as well. It's just that when it comes to the current setup for Commander with the Rules Committee, they only ban things that are, absurdly egregious. Like, more absurdly egregious than Dockside Extortionist, which is a very, very short list. So yeah, Nadu's probably not on that, although the Rules Committee did say that they are looking into Nadu. That being said, I doubt it's going to get banned. Okay, so again, just kind of seeing that, like, things can get changed at the last minute. Again, you have, like, these meetings, these different groups coming in and again saying like, okay, yeah, that's concerning, that Nadu's got a flash granting ability. I personally don't think that would be anywhere near as concerning as how concerning this one is, so I don't see how that group that is supposed to be, there for Commander and saying like, okay, we're trying to just double check things, make sure that this isn't broken for Commander. Okay, that's good to go. It doesn't give flash anymore. How did that group that is specific for Commander not see that, oh, Nadu now combos incredibly easily with all these other things? Again, if you just, you could probably just have, a group of people from the Magic community that, build the higher tier, even in casual or CDH decks, and say like, hey, I want you to try to break these things that we're showing you essentially, and have them sign an NDA or whatnot. But if you show them Nadu, again, like it took my playgroup literally 30 seconds to identify what you use. Like, again, Shuko was the first card that came to my mind. But then all of a sudden, I'm like, well, players aren't going to do that, right? Like, maybe not. I don't know. And then, of course, they did. Like, Nadu's got like 79% of it have Shuko, which is crazy expensive these days now even. But yeah, like that group that was able to identify that was a problem, I don't understand how they didn't catch that too. And again, how something can just not be play tested then as well. But, that's just kind of the reality of the way it is, I guess. So, moving forward, hopefully this doesn't happen again, but we shall see. I want to go over some talking points and learnings before I do. I'll emphasize that despite the failings in the process, ultimately the card was my responsibility as lead designer of the set. Again, mistakes happen, and with this designer, like I can't imagine again like having all these cards designed, be at the last minute, and then someone being like, oh well, we need to change this because of this, and then just like okay, quickly change, and then try to retest, and you can't test. So I understand that mistakes do happen, and I do think kind of that the process maybe is the problem versus the designer themselves, because that first iteration was fine, and fine in Commander too. So like, who's making that decision in Commander? All right, the scope of risk. A lot of early buzz surrounding Nadu include comments like, why does F4 toughness, or is only triggered once, it'd be okay, and the most extreme being, to the quotations of the card in the wrong place. As I've already gone over, the most obvious answer to these things is typically the right one. Nadu was not an attempt to push a card right up their perceived maximum power level and miss the mark. If I had grasped the scope of risk here, I would have changed the text box entirely and not hoped that trimming a toughness would land us in the perfect spot. That's completely understandable. However, much of the Managing a Modern Horizons set is walking a tightrope of risk. Ugin's Labyrinth and Cathonian Nightmare are examples of cards that were shipped with eyes wide open. There was a chance of these cards going wrong, but they were deemed worth doing to inject power and excitement into both lapsed and brand new decks. So again, it's interesting that like, what actually made this a mistake was the fact that Commander had to be a consideration in the first place for a modern set, which again is just kind of weird and backwards versus being like, again, if you're going to make a card for modern, you should be able to make it for modern, and you just let the rules committee know ahead of time, be like, hey, you might need to ban this, which is completely fine in my opinion. If you're like, okay, yeah, design the card for modern, it's for that format, it's not for Commander. Cool. Ban it if it's going to be problematic. And again, that an original one wouldn't have been a problem. Okay, but let's skip down to what we learned. This is both a design and logistical failure. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Again, I think that the design side is more understandable with the logistics of it, where there's like a last minute, like, you need to change this, versus, again, having all that time with the card being designed and tested through and through and through, and then all of a sudden a group comes along and says, oh, that's a problem for Commander. This is something we're trying to tackle in a variety of ways. The ban and restricted announcement timing is changing to be optimized for RCQs and widespread competitive play going around. While we can't guarantee we'll avoid bans in the future, we can take steps to make sure that they do as little damage as possible. Players who invest their time and energy into competitive formats. On the inside, it's a combination of things. One, at a high level, we want to make sure that all relevant groups have time to impact change in a time window that makes sense for the project. So again, yes, I think that is the main issue right there that was pointed out. Basically that, hey, there's groups that are coming through at the end of the process after the card had already been playtested and everything like that with one iteration of the card, and then all of a sudden being like, oh, that might be problematic in Commander, and we have to make sure that we're making changes for Commander, which, again, I don't think should necessarily be a thing potentially for a set that's supposed to be for Modern, but of course, I guess when you talk about that, you're like, then why does it have also, the precons that are attached to it, which are not for Modern and cannot be played in Modern? Anyways, moving on. I have faith that if the current Nadu had been scrutinized while our contractors were actively playtesting, things would have turned out better. I definitely agree with that. Two, I'll be putting more effort toward being conservative if I can't draw clear conclusions, as well as encouraging that behavior in others. I didn't know that Shuko was powerful with Nadu, however. I was aware that I didn't fully understand the implications of Nadu's text box. That should have urged me to more aggressively seek other opinions, and failing any strong considerations to default to something I better understood. I was blinded by the goal, make something that's really awesome for somebody. Ultimately, no one was happy. Again, the make something that's really awesome for somebody, again, that seems to be a problem potentially for designers when it comes to like, okay, like make something that's awesome for somebody. Usually that somebody becomes for Commander players. And again, there is that kind of push and pull these days of like, okay, a lot of things are being designed with Commander in mind, which has good things, but also very bad things because, yeah, you're making things problematic for other formats. And also you're kind of taking away from a little bit of what like made Commander special originally, which was like cards that aren't necessarily just designed for Commander. And again, making things that are potentially broken in other formats and pretty problematic in Commander, but Commander doesn't ban things. So there you go. Ultimately, nobody was happy. I'll conclude by stressing the point that Magic is a game of enormous complexity, 100%. We won't get things right all the time or always be able to predict how our formats respond. However, the creation of this game is a labor of love. And so in these situations that fall on the side of clear mistakes with clear solutions, we take them very seriously, always looking to improve the way we make the game. Well, Michael, I do appreciate that you wrote this article, that you are open and honest about, again, the problems that occurred with this. I do hope that, again, Wizards does update the way that they have just the logistics of going about testing the card, because, again, the card was tested, Again, let's just look at it. With this, again, and this is, again, apparently you may cast principles without flash. Problematic in Commander. I mean, it's very powerful, sure, but like, which is more problematic? The way that Nadu is now is much more problematic than this. Much more problematic than this. So again, like, having people come in last minute and be like, you need to change this, and then not having time to actually test that, that's problematic. So yeah, make some adjustments as needed, because the way that it currently works does not work. And again, here's the thing with this. For Commander, will this have any impact on Commander? I mean, this might. Like, this being banned in Modern and them giving the explanation as to kind of what happened in the entire situation, maybe that does influence the rules committee to be like, well, Modern, like, did it. And also, like, it's problematic in Commander in that, like, when you're playing it, it is kind of one of those commanders that has, like, a non-deterministic win, or even with its wins, they take forever to actually happen. Again, it is going to be a game of solitaire. It is incredibly easy to break. It is very easy to break. So, like, will the rules committee actually utilize this kind of as a marker to say, you know what, it should be banned in Commander as well? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to. If I'm going to guess, I'd say no, because if you said, like, is Nadu more broken than Dockside, I'd be like, well, no. Not many things are more broken than Dockside, and Dockside isn't banned. So that's kind of the problem with Commander when it comes to bans, is that it seems like the rules committee really, for the past, again, like 3+ years, hasn't been willing to ban anything, and so therefore, like, you can't really ban things when other things that are worse aren't banned yet. So we shall see. Again, pretty interesting that this was the original one, and I think, again, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this one, but I think this is a fine design. I think this is one that, like, didn't really have a problem. Maybe I'm underselling, again, just like how problematic, you know, Vidalcan Ori is out of the command zone, but again, we already have other commanders out there that do that. So, yeah, and other cards out there that allow you to do that as well. See, I don't think, like, flash abilities, like, yeah, I don't think this is anywhere near as problematic as current Nadu. So, again, the fact that this was seen the first time, but not any other times, is interesting. So, yeah. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. As always, comment below with your thoughts on it. And, of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.